All right, then I will call this meeting to order. This is the February 17th, 2022 meeting of the Public Art Ad Hoc Committee. I'm Christopher McMorran. We will get started with a roll call. Is absent. Ruth Causey.
Here.
Sally Duell is absent. Jen Edwards. Shar Fagerston is absent. Nancy Froelich.
Here.
Janelle Joy.
Here.
And Peggy Yoder.
Here.
And then we're joined, of course, by Chelsea Starner as well as Deanne Garcia. And I'm going to switch up our agenda a little bit if there's no opposition, and we will wait on adoption of minutes until the end, just because Jen has to leave early and I want to get straight to our discussion with Garcia of Marks Garcia before we take care of some of that other business. So is there any opposition to postponing our minutes until the end?
No.
Fantastic. Okay, then we will go ahead and get started on our business item number 1, which is the sidewalk inlay design discussion and the city council meeting recap. I guess just to start off, Chelsea sent you all an email. We were happy that the city council unanimously approved our recommendation to award the design contract to Marks Garcia. And I'm very pleased that we have Deanne. Am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Deanne?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. I'm very pleased that we have Deanne Garcia here of Marks Garcia to chat with us a little bit this evening. And again, thank you all for your work getting to this point. Chelsea, I guess, do you want to sort of take it away?
Sure. Yeah, so we put the agenda item on either to just have a discussion or hoping that Marks Garcia would be able to join us. So we're, again, very glad that you're here, Deanne. And so we don't have anything formalized, but thought this would be a good opportunity for you, Deanne, to kind of introduce yourself, your firm, and then if you have a general idea of how you'd like to see the process go, you can comment on that. We did have general design kind of theme ideas that we whittled down to that you saw in the request for proposals. So you have that information. And then also all of the meetings are available on Facebook if you want to go back and look at any of them. But this is kind of where we came to as a committee. And I think everyone here, I could speak for everyone here, that we're really excited to see some of these ideas and themes that we've worked on, visually come to life. So if you just want to take over and let us know what you have to say to us, then maybe we'll ask a few questions and can kind of go from there.
So I'm Deanne Garcia, and absent today is Andrea Marks, my partner in this project. Andrea has been a faculty member at Oregon State since 1992 in the graphic design department. And I first met her in 2000 when I was a student in that program. She and I worked closely together during that time, 4 years when I was in school, and maintained our relationship after I graduated. So I went on and moved to Portland and worked primarily in the outdoor industry as a graphic designer. And then decided I wanted to pursue further education in sustainability. So I got my master's in sustainable design and product design. So since then, I returned to Oregon State and taught here for about 5 years. And I now teach occasionally. I'm teaching a class right now in professional development, but I teach here and there, but most of my time is devoted to my design practice. And so Andrea and I have been able to work together on projects as she is nearing, not to retirement, but getting there closely and looking at what else she wants to do with her time after she wraps up at Oregon State someday. And so we were really excited when we saw this come up as something that, I lived in Corvallis 20 years ago, moved back here 6 years ago, and my husband grew up here. Andrea's been here since the 90s. So it was really exciting to see a project that would have an impact in our local community. And I live closer to Philomath, actually. Now I live out on the west side of Corvallis, out in the country. And so this was exciting to see that you all are working on a downtown renovation, because there's so much potential there, I think, which obviously you recognize if this is something that you want to devote time and resources to. And the idea of incorporating the history and identity of Philomath in public art is a great way of just sort of telling the story, I think, of what the identity is of that community, and what makes it unique. And yeah, so that's who we are. And I'm excited to start to talk with you all tonight about the different themes and that you have in mind. And I'd love to talk through some of the inspiration points that I'm sure you've discussed at different points as you've been deciding on this as a direction. Generally, the way Andrea and I work is we like to gather as much information from you all as we can up front to try to understand really what your goals are, as far as what, not just aesthetically, but also communication wise. What is the larger story that you want to tell, and what is the role of this part in telling that larger story as you're renovating the downtown? I'd also love to be able to get some closer identity or idea of what you're looking for in terms of the materials that this will be living around. I've looked through some of the meetings documents from the last summer, but I'm not sure what is final and what is still sort of like being decided. We'd love to be able to take some cues from whatever has already been decided upon. And that our goal is really for this to be integrated closely so that it doesn't feel separate from anything around it, that it feels highly integrated and part of a bigger picture.
Great.
Well, yes. Thank you so much. And yeah, Chelsea.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I do have from our landscape design company that did the first design committee. That's how we got to this ad hoc committee. I do have their design components that they've come out of, benches, landscaping, street lights, things like that. So I can send you that information, and it will kind of help you visually see what else is going around the area, around the sidewalks. So that should help.
Cool.
Yeah. I guess if I can just sort of maybe start off with a very broad level overview, and obviously it sounds like you've looked through a lot of it, and a lot of it was discussed in our RFP, but and committee members, if I at any point say something that you think is misrepresenting the committee, please just speak up. I think the theme of the entire downtown renovation is Timber Town, and then we sort of wanted to go in that direction, but in our own sort of take on it, where a lot of the downtown will be wood and that sort of timber industry feel. So then we wanted our portion of these inlays to represent more of the natural environment and some of the other things that you don't see from those big wooden post street lights and stuff. Those are fantastic, but we kind of wanted to give a broader view. So talking about the flora and fauna, as well as some of the culture of our area. And yeah, that's, I guess, the very high level overview. I guess, do any committee members have any specifics of sort of around just the overview that would be beneficial?
How about if I start, Christopher, with just
please.
rereading what the sentence that we chose to put in?
Yes.
That might help. We might refresh everyone.
This is why you're here.
Right, it might help. So we wrote, the committee has chosen general themes for exploration with the chosen designer, including local indigenous culture, natural landscapes, local forests, and wildlife. And so we did hone in on that. There were a lot of other sparked ideas, which I can also share with you because you might find something in there, but this is what we had to get it, focused a little more, so it didn't seem like a list of 25 things, but that's what the committee decided on.
Yeah. And I guess, Chelsea, would you be able to send over any of the like reference examples that we used as a committee? If
Yes.
we haven't already. Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank yeah, I guess any other committee members, do you have sort of anything that we're leaving out in terms of the vibe, Ruth?
I'm going to defer to Peggy first because she always has some good artistic thoughts. Go, Peggy.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence, Ruth, but I was just thinking, the silhouette of Mary's Peak as we view it from Philomath, all of us, I think, Jim, just really like to have that as a view. So when people are walking around and saying, what is that? They might be able to see what our beautiful peak is that we have right here, in the coastal range. So, and then of course, like what Chelsea already said, the flora and the fauna, even though it's been voted to be a timber town, the beauty surrounding the timber town is important, and that's really what we were kind of focusing on.
Yeah, I think the area is really known for, a lot of the timber companies around here are really environmentally minded in a lot of ways. And so from my experience, at least, it seems that they see the larger ecosystem as important. So that seems like it could easily be integrated into that theme while still representing kind of the micro and the macro on both sides.
Right. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peggy. What I wanted to say was, in our discussions, we considered current events types items that define Philomath to a degree, but the group really stepped back and focused on this area. I think it's a natural environment, as other people had mentioned, but also natural in a more historic sense. Going back to our Native Americans who lived here. So it's really, which is a theme that I think works very well because as many of us believe these inlays will probably be here longer than we are. And so it makes sense to focus on something more permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ruth. Nancy?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. One thing that interested me is looking deeper into like the preservation efforts that have been happening with the timber companies. I'm not sure exactly like if there's birds that they're trying to protect, I know that like where I live in Wren, the Fender's blue butterfly there was a big effort to preserve them because they were considered extinct, and then they were discovered in this area. And now they're off the endangered species list, which is pretty amazing that they were able to turn that around. I don't know if the timber companies had anything to do with that, but I know that they're, at least Starker Forest, which is near us, they seem to be mindful of the movement of animals. And
Yeah,
I don't know if there's something there. I know that honing in on a focus is really is important. So maybe there's something there, but I do like the macro micro perspective and sort of looking at it as a bigger thing, and then also the details that make up our ecosystem. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. Janelle, and then we'll go back to Peggy.
I like Nancy's idea about specifically potentially incorporating the Fender's blue into one of these. I don't know that we had brought that up before, but I like that idea a lot. I mean, we've talked about deer and elk and so forth, but that's a little bit more of an important, I won't go there. Anyway, that would be cool.
Something more unique, like elk live everywhere, but this butterfly is something that's pretty
special
important
to this area.
here.
Exactly. Thank you for helping me with those words. And then also we had talked about at one point in time, the outer edge of the inlay to be either a saw blade. We talked about it being like a wood cookie. And I think that we all kind of abandoned those ideas, but the idea of potentially Mary's Peak as we see it from town and Mary's River, which are both
Mhm.
very prominent, hopefully here to stay, you know, landscapes, that maybe that's something that we could incorporate in each of the designs, then with other of the flora and fauna within that.
Yeah.
So I just thought of that, but
Yeah, thank you. And then back to Peggy.
Thanks. I couldn't hear Janelle very well, but I believe that she brought up the Finner's Blue Butterfly again, which I know that Greenbelt Land Trust, we have a pretty good piece of Greenbelt Land Trust here in Philomath that is a little bit north of town. And it's been pretty instrumental in making sure that the Finner's Blue Butterfly is preserved there. I even taken a walk up there. I saw one. And you know, so yeah, I think something like that on there would be really great, since it is so localized right here.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
I just wanted to share too, and I'll share more information, you'll see it, but the other things that the committee is deciding on that are going to be semi-artistic or artistic of different ranges are a kiosk, so wood kiosk where, you know, we can put information and have the like plexiglass covered informational areas, and then bike racks that have like a cutout. And then there will be plinths placed that will eventually have artwork on them affixed to them. So just so you have another idea of the other types of art pieces that will go around, those are involved in the project.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I guess just for you, do you have any like specific questions that we can answer or anything in this, or should we just sort of keep throwing things out?
I do have some pretty like specific questions.
Okay.
But if we're kind of rolling on some brainstorming here, then I'm open to continuing this before I jump into my specifics, if there's more to add to this.
Yeah, I guess for the group, do we have other things? I mean, I think one thing that also got thrown out that I don't know, just a very specific thing that I don't know if we mentioned is the Oregon white oak. And I don't know if there were any other specific species that we mentioned, Jen.
Someone mentioned the camas
Oh yeah,
as well. I think that was mentioned too.
Yeah, I think the camas is going to be pretty important, even perhaps with also with the Indigenous peoples theme, since that was such an
Cultural
important.
and yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I raised my hand too. I just wanted to make sure we did mention, we didn't want that we're stepping on, you know, any kind of symbolism with the
Yeah.
Indigenous. We want to make sure that that was handled appropriately.
yeah. I think we wanted to stay away from imagery of people pretty
Yeah,
much.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
But we wanted, you know, make sure it didn't feel like that literal
Right.
interpretation of things. So
and especially we didn't want to have it be like there's no people except for Indigenous people. Like it was just Indigenous people and animals. 'Cause it's a weird sort of yeah.
Avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a video project with the College of Forestry last year where we're talking about the Kalapuya people in this area, part of the This is Kalapuya Land exhibit that was around campus and other areas. And one thing that I found during the research of that is that a lot of the imagery, even the historical imagery of the Kalapuya people, is still like not appropriate to be used, since most of it is sort of it's not a gaze that we would want to use to represent those people. So it's much using more of the cultural cues around it and telling the story of what's important to that group of people then and now might be a more a richer way of talking about it without it becoming a caricature.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Janelle?
on touching on that and what someone said earlier about forest and timber companies, on the same note as the College of Forestry, I know that Steve Fitzgerald, that runs the OSU College Research Forests,
Mhm.
is very in tune with wildlife and like forests his land in a way that promotes wildlife and connectivity between patchwork landscapes. So just some, I mean, I can't speak personally to many of the local, closer to Philomath companies, but I do know that exists.
And Nancy?
So this might be getting too specific, but I always love in design pieces when scale is explored. So like the butterfly is bigger than the elk, or I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's a fun opportunity to like shift your perspective and how you think about things just by making it bigger and then something else is smaller. I don't know.
So hierarchy doesn't need to be dependent upon physical size.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause if you've seen a Fender's blue butterfly, they're tiny. Like you actually have to be looking for them to even notice them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has any opinions about that, but I always think that's an interesting way to get people to have a second thought about what they're looking at.
Yeah, this is sort of a side note, but just to make sure we come back to it, I think, sort of depending on how these designs are and what all is incorporated in them, it might be good to then come back to this when we're doing the kiosk discussion, because it might be nice to sort of have a little explainer of these designs in the kiosk, because people from out of town just like, oh, there's a butterfly in a hill, that's nice, but just sort of explaining why that's significant to the area would be good. So it's not really related to this. I just wanted to get that in there. And then
Everyone remember that when we're talking about what to put
yes.
at the kiosk. Between all of us, we should be able to remember it.
As a theater major, I love playing with perspective, so.
There you go. Peggy?
I'd be interested to see, Deanne, if what your vision of the wood cookie with information, maybe kind of on the cookie where the wood cookie is surrounding on the outside. I know that we had talked about it, and Janelle had a really, really good little visual on what it might look like. I guess I don't remember us completely tossing it out, but only if it wouldn't make any sense. If it would make sense, and I'm not a designer, if it could make sense, then it'd be great just to see how that might play out.
Yeah, I think it would be important for there to be a unifying aspect to these, and the edge of the plaques themselves could be that unifying characteristic, and that definitely could be something like representative of the bark of a tree. So it'd be like the wood cookie, the wood is sort of gone, but the bark is still there. So it's not like hitting you in the face, but it's something that you start to recognize as you see more than one, and as you kind of explore them, that it becomes a discovery element almost, or something that draws you a little deeper.
Right. In a basket, we've also talked about a basket weave maybe being around on the perimeter of it. That might be more recognizable. I don't know, but that is just a couple of things that we were tossing around.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Chelsea?
Yes, I also wanted to say that I'm pretty sure that we know who the metal fabricator will be, and they have presented with a couple different options for metals to use that might have an effect on how you would design.
Yes.
Or what you could. So I'm going to try to finalize that and get that wrapped up so that I can put you in contact with them, which I think will help you a lot too, to make sure that you're not suggesting something that just can't work, or that between the two different types of metal and the way that they manufacture them. Janelle's showing her cookie.
Yeah, thank you.
That you would know, if you're wanting to go this route with the iron, these are the types of things that we could do. If you're wanting to go with bronze, this is the type of thing you're going to do. So I'm going to try to get you contacted with them pretty early on here.
Great.
So that you can work.
That was a number one item on my list, actually.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because that definitely will have a lot of bearing, I think, on what we can do.
Yeah. And I think this just, maybe it's Chelsea, let me know if it's too early to talk about that, but I think some of the materials we had talked about were like brass or cast iron. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so they have an iron offering that they can do, and then they also have like the traditional bronze
Bronze, yeah.
that they do there, and they're very familiar with doing these types of projects. They have federal contracts So they do these for cities all over, and they're in Washington, so they're fairly local. But they've really been recommended by our landscape design firm, who's been done a great job in this whole process. And they feel very confident that we will get what we're looking for out of it. And everything will be, this is an ODOT project. So we have some pretty strict, guidelines that we have to adhere to, and they can check all of those boxes. So I'm looking into that on the side, but for the design portion of it, I know that you'll need to know what those possibilities are.
Yeah, a couple of the things I'd written down around that were like, will it be like a full relief or 2 layers? Or there's a lot to look at, I guess, with them specifically. So earlier the better for that. Thank you.
Janelle?
I just think that we had talked about cast iron at some point in time too, being really fitting in with the Timber Town idea. If we can make that happen, I mean, if you think about like, the old time logger, really, but then also like we still all use cast iron today. So it's kind of a nice thing. It might be a lot less expensive perhaps than bronze or some of the other materials. I don't know how it is to work with. I have zero idea on anything like that. It's not my gig, but it might be kind of cool because we have this round, it's Timber Town, and we have all these angles, like you said, and all this wood, and then we have this beautiful round, inlay that still has that grit that everyone talks about, but it's softer. It's depicting the softness and the beauty around Philomath instead of the saw blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I guess maybe Chelsea, as you're finalizing that, do you know if that company could maybe like send us some examples of what, just because maybe,
Yes.
their cast iron doesn't look like a cast iron skillet and we're all just
Or like what we're thinking of. Yeah, I think that will be really important because it may be that cast iron is one, like if you're wanting a very simple outline of a fish or something,
right.
we can do that. If you're wanting anything more detailed, it may have to be bronze. I don't know that.
Okay.
But I think, yes, we'll try to get those questions answered as soon as possible because I think that needs to be known so that that Deanne, you can move forward with your ideas. So
yeah, and I'm sure also with something like a bronze or a brass, there's going to be different colored finishes.
Yes, and they
textures.
have different, so I know that they have to put a certain type of finish on it, which actually might be good for our project because it tends to make it a little more matte, and that's so that it's ADA and less, it's more slip resistant. And so I do know that they have different finishes, different looks. So that's another thing, is that there may be things that we're not thinking about when we looked at the examples of the bronze inlays. There might be things completely different that are available for us. So
cool.
Peggy?
One other thing that we had been talking about was maybe some of the designs that they're actually, the cement actually comes through the design. So it's not a solid design. That would just make it so it's a little more traction. So there would be open cutouts where the cement would actually be coming through. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I saw that in a couple of the examples that you had looked at in some of your previous meetings.
Okay.
That was interesting. Kind of mix the materials like that.
Right.
And I guess, Chelsea, do we have any more idea of if we have to do that, or is that?
I don't think we have to. Since I got in contact with Iron Age, they clearly, they do this to federal standards.
Okay.
And they have the way that they show the inlay. They sent me specs, and they actually have little like feet that go in that set them in. There's a whole way that they're installed with like rebar. I don't even know, but they clearly understood this application. And so I think it solved that a little bit. I mean, it's still an option, I think, depending on, if it is an option, if that's something that they do. But yeah, I think that either way, it would work well it'll be affixed.
Cool.
Great, thank you. And then Ruth?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to ask Deanne, since you work in sustainability, is there anything that comes to mind to you that might be appropriate or exciting to include?
As far as the material of the metal itself, or as the
As
theme?
far as the design.
Well, I mean, I think that the focus on sort of merging the ecology with the timber ethos, I think that right there actually tells a pretty important story about how we're managing things in a more sustainable way. A lot of what I deal with in sustainability is like trying to look at the systems that exist today and how we can improve them, because these systems are persistent and necessary. And the timber industry is important to the United States economy and to the local economy as well, and is not something that needs to be discarded, but instead, by implementing the technologies and the techniques and the viewpoint of like getting away from monocropping and more to having forests that are more incorporative of the important ecology and flora and fauna that needs to live there to keep it as a complex and vibrant system, and how those things like live side by side. I really think that actually the theme as it is tells that story pretty well. And maybe,
Cool.
yeah, maybe the kiosk or some of the other materials might be a good place to kind of explain that in a more overt way, because it feels to me like this area is pretty central to that movement of more sustainable forestry. I think, especially with the research that's done locally here on sustainable forestry, there's just a lot to talk about there.
Thank you.
No, yeah, that's a great question, Ruth. Thank you. And a great answer. Just great all around. And I see that Jen has left us. I'm also just going to leave for like 30 seconds so I can log out of this work account and into my personal account, just to avoid any issues. So I'll be back in just a second. So just little 30-second recess here.
And I'm sorry if I'm fidgeting around nonstop here. I actually had a knee replacement last week.
Oh my God.
Ow.
A lot.
And so you mentioned that you have specific questions, one of which was the metal question. And so does everyone feel good? Like you've gotten out your general ideas to start?
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be
good,
fun.
good. It is exciting to finally, all the work that you've done and all your discussions, like have someone who can put that on paper.
Absolutely.
That is very exciting.
All of those ideas are in the minutes. at
Yes,
some
they
point in
are.
time,
And
right?
I will try to, they're definitely in there. I can recap too.
So if we're forgetting
Good.
anything, then Deanne could
Mhm.
get it from there if we're missing one of our key
Yeah.
discussions.
Christopher, we're gonna move on and let Deanne, I just asked if everyone felt like they were in a good place to have her start her questions.
Okay, yes, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we're doing 5 designs for these, but it looks like only 4 would be produced immediately and 1 would be in the future, or is that still the plan, or will it be all 5 produced at once?
It will just, yeah, so it would just be 4 at this time. And part of that thought is that, this needs to go to the city council for final approval. And it does give a little bit of an option if there are 5 designs that they said, look, these are the 4 that we really want to see out right now. Let's save that one. But there are some potential projects coming up downtown, which might give opportunity to add an inlay or 2 to just kind of carry through to the city property. So that was the thought of doing the 5 designs, is that we would have that cohesive design already there. Or if for some reason they said, hey, we actually can put another in layer 2 in downtown. I don't think they're going to say that, but if they did, then we would have that as well as an option.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
And Chelsea, I know we've talked about this like 3 times, but how many times would each one be repeated? It's like 3 times.
I think it's 3 times. Yeah. And they're not all right next to each other. The other thing that having the 5 designs does is if we say, here's an awkward area where it looks like it would be, you know, this one, this one, this one, and then we have to repeat one, it could give us an option. It is an additional cost to make the mold for it in the manufacturing, but it gives us that option. Like we want to have the option because we're on a short time frame. So when we look at this with the landscape designer and say, okay, here they are, where are these going to go? I want us to have options without having to spend additional time that we don't have. So
Yeah, thank you. Janelle?
I think too that was also based a little bit, well, not a little bit, that was also based on cost, right? That we knew, I mean, sure, having 14 designs would be rad, but I think that we knew that we couldn't afford to do that. So that's how we came up with repeating them 3 times, even though that wasn't, I think, anyone's first choice.
Mhm.
That's where we ended up.
Okay. I had a question about the approval process and how we'll talk through our ideas as we go. So Andrea and I will go back from this and start to sketch and pull together some rough ideas of what should be incorporated into each of the 5 designs, and then pull them together sort of aesthetically so that you can get a better idea of what they might look like. So as we bring our design ideas to you, will we be presenting those to the full committee, to this committee, or what will our approval process look like, I guess?
oh, we can have some conversations like through email or sharing things so that you can keep moving because we obviously can't meet like this probably as often as you'll have questions. So we can do that. We just have to be careful not to make any like final decision without the whole committee being, you know, publicly with a quorum making those decisions. So that's really the only thing that we would have to keep in mind. But I'm hoping that we can get tonight. We might not set our meeting. We may be doing that, just so you know, Christopher, we might do that via email so that I can kind of schedule some dates with the 2 of you that work going forward. And I think we can all just agree to that via email this time.
Cool. And then at the end, there's a couple of dates in the timeline. It shows that we will be committee final review in early April and then city council final approval. So I assume that means we'll present to you as a committee to get final sign off on all 5 designs. And then at that point, it needs to go to the city council. So will Andrea and I present to the city council, or should we provide you with enough materials that you can present to them?
It depends on your comfort level and what you've included. I think it's always great if the words of the artist can be there. But you know, we can do that either way. I know Christopher's great about representing the committee as the chair, and Ruth is on the city council. So we can have members and people there to have that voice and have the discussion. So that's kind of up for discussion on what you're comfortable with. You can decide on that later. We can talk about it later.
I think we would probably prefer to present ourselves.
Right.
Like you said, it's just a little more direct instead of playing telephone.
Right.
But if that wasn't an option, then we definitely would just arm
It's
you with-
absolutely an option. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the thing that makes the most sense to me is if you 2 are there to sort of talk about the art, and then I can be there to sort of talk about, you know, if there's questions on what the committee process was or what committee members thought.
How we got there.
Yeah, those are the questions I can answer. So, and you can talk more about just the art itself. So
That sounds great.
okay.
Let's see. And we talked about the fabricator. We talked about, I think that's actually, oh, one last thing. I saw a note from last meeting about potentially repurposing some of this artwork for the bike racks. Is that something that we should keep in mind as we're building these out? just to make sure that it's like something that can be repurposed in that way?
So we're going to have a discussion later in the meeting about the bike racks, I think.
Okay.
And we may, it's on the table to decide. We had a few other artists that were really well liked, to maybe give one of them an opportunity to design something, keeping in mind that it's a little difficult because trying to do all these moving parts of, again, and I've said this before in the meeting, the kiosk doesn't really have a timeline. We get to do that aside from the ODOT project. But the bike racks and the inlays are tied into the ODOT project. So there's a little bit of a timing thing. The bike racks don't take as long to produce, which is really great. So there's opportunity there to maybe collaborate, or just to make sure, like you had said in the beginning, it's important, and it's been mentioned here before by a number of members, to make sure that everything's cohesive.
Mhm.
So even if things are being designed by different people, just to make sure that we're not, there's a classic car on the bike racks and you're doing
Yeah.
natural forest and flora and fauna thing. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we'll keep you posted on that. We haven't made a final decision on it, but
Okay.
and I think the bike racks are a much simpler design. They do the cutouts. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen those. So
Yeah.
those are something that could even be, like you put a deer on this. Can we just do it's simple cutout version of that deer that says Philomath or something like that. So
That sounds good.
yeah. Okay.
All right. And then just to follow up afterward, we'll get the final color, texture, material, finish, whatnot for the other fixtures, and we'll follow up with the fabricator, and that should answer the rest of our questions.
Great.
All right.
Well, we really appreciate you coming. Did anyone else have anything final?
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Really
likewise.
looking forward to working with you.
Yes.
Very excited.
Great to get this ball rolling. We've been talking about this since like October, so it feels exciting to finally.
Ready.
Done.
But yes, thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to meeting again soon.
All right. Thank you. Talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So then we can go ahead, and we still have a quorum, right? I know we're a bit.
Well, this is an ad hoc committee.
That's true, and I think because there's 9 people and we have
And,
5 people, so
I have contacted the member who has not attended a meeting yet. I'm just not, I so far haven't gotten a response. So I'm going to try several other ways, because I have noticed, that is a member that we have, that for as far as like having enough people to make decisions. Yeah. So I don't think that we have anything except for the minutes that we're actually approving.
well, I think because it says there's 9 members of the committee and there's 5 of
Yes.
us here still, so I think we
I
should.
think you're okay. Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to check. Okay, well, that's great. I'm very excited about this. I guess, should we move on to bike rack discussion then?
Yeah. And so do you want to share maybe when we get there, Christopher?
Yeah.
Because I try to be good at doing both, and I can do both, but it's probably better if we're both doing. So Ruth had emailed earlier about, and I'll let Ruth talk about it, but about the possibility of maybe having Bear Tracks using some of their work for the bike racks, which is what I was kind of alluding to in the last discussion. And so I'll let Ruth talk about that. I didn't really have anything specific to put on for the bike rack design, other than I just wanted to have it on there so that if we had time, we could have some sort of discussion about it, just to kind of keep the momentum going. So Ruth, do you want to talk about what you sent the email about?
Yeah, I just, I know there were a few people that really liked Bear Tracks works. And if you didn't get into the Etsy links, there were a lot of designs elements there that I thought could possibly be simplified and used in the bike racks. And if he were also to do the design work for the kiosk, it could be that could create some linkage there. So I just wanted to mention that idea. Obviously, depending on what Marks Garcia comes up with, we may really like it and want to use that in the bike racks as well. But I just thought there were some possibilities here that could work.
Yeah, no, that's a great thought. Nancy?
I love his patterns, and I don't know if there's the possibility of putting patterns on the bike rack as like a die cut kind of scenario, if that's possible. His graphic imagery, like of the elk and stuff, like I don't know. I like the idea of trying to be cohesive, but maybe not same, like not an exact image from the metal inlays on the bike racks, right? So I love the idea of doing something different on the bike racks, but I also, the cohesive part, I guess that's what I'm just concerned about with using a different artist. But maybe that's fine. I don't know. I love his patterns. I think that could be a really awesome thing.
Yes. Just sort of on that note, Chelsea, as far as timeline for this, like,
We have, so there's a little bit more time. Like I said, the manufacturing process for the bike racks is shorter than the inlays. So as you're working through the process with Marks Garcia, I think what I would recommend is just to keep that in mind. If we did want to ask them to pull something out, I think that would be pretty easy for them to do even near the end of their design process. So just keep this in mind. And if this is something that you're wanting, that you're looking at these designs and thinking, we want to see that on the kiosk, we want to see that on the bike racks, just keep it in mind so that we can let Marks Garcia know. So even if these are going to be separate things, it would be nice if they know that you're leaning toward that, just so that, again, but I wouldn't say, I think the idea of having something like that on the kiosk and on the bike rack, or on the kiosk and having a few art pieces on the plinths, does tie it together, and it does all go with, this natural cultural, like, I think it's all tied together. It doesn't have to be like matchy, like Nancy was saying. I think it doesn't have to be. I think all of those themes go together, and I don't think that we intend for everything to be right. Like, I don't know who said it, but the lights, they're all going to match and be the timber things, and the benches are all going to match, and so this is an opportunity to have things feel cohesive without feeling matchy. The art can be independent of that. And so I think either way that you choose to go there, I think there's some opportunities to tie things together in a way that feels like it belongs with the theme that you're going for. And I think that's just the important thing, is to carry your theme through on your discussions with your other art decisions that you're making.
Janelle?
Yes, I thank you for that, Chelsea. I think that that's awesome, because I agree with what Nancy was saying. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that. It might be kind of cool, those panels on the ends of the bike racks that are whatever, 12 by 48 or whatever they are. They aren't structural, I don't think. So when they just do a round cutout or whatever, you could do those panels in a pattern that would be very cool with bear tracks. And then the 8x8s or 8x12s or whatever it is that's holding up this kiosk, he could carve those, the outer ones, and that would be amazing. And then a story about the patterns that are carved and what they mean to our community. And then it might also be cool. I'm on what you said earlier, Christopher, about the kiosk. I'm kind of envisioning what I've seen in Corvallis as like the walking tours, that you'll have a plinth tour, you'll have a inlay tour, you can have a building tour, right? I mean, really easy for businesses to have rack with 2 or 3 trifold pamphlets that describe all of this stuff. So that or maybe it's one pamphlet that describes everything, I don't know. But you know what I mean? So you would know when you go through Philomath, what do these mean? What's this about? What's describing all of the things? Because then when the art changes, you can change those pamphlets. So some of the things that go on the kiosk are like forever and for real for the most part, right? But the plinths are going to change over time. So that would just be a way that we could, I don't know, have something people could take with them and walk and learn about the stuff as they stroll through our beautiful community.
Can I respond to that before you get to Nancy?
Yeah.
Christopher? Okay, so yes, and I think that that the kiosk is intended, at least in the design phase, to have space to put pamphlets. So it's not just something visual on the upper portion of it. It would actually provide a place to have pamphlets to put how you got to the inlays and the art downtown. And yes, I think the plinths are, I know several cities have done different things with those. Some of them, I haven't quite gotten to that part yet because we've been focusing on what we're focusing on. But I do think that some of them change out, or some cities do it where it's for sale. So it helps artists by getting their work out where it could potentially sell for them. So I think there are different ways to do that. So I do think those might change out, and that would be a good opportunity to put information at the kiosk or with other businesses.
I guess, well, sorry, Nancy, and then I'll talk.
Yeah, I was just gonna build off of what Janelle said. I really liked all of your comments. And I guess my thinking with Deanne and Andrea, like if there's typography used at all on the inlays, if there's any type that says something, that if there's going to be typography on the bike rack, like we had talked about, it says Philomath or something, if Bear Track's pattern can be filtered through Andrea and Deanne to, you know, make it feel like it has the same sort of spirit as the inlays, if that makes any sense. And then with the kiosk, if whatever information we're choosing to put, if it's in a similar voice, I guess I'm not really talking about theme as like direct, everything's about flora and fauna, but more like what's the visual theme? Like what's the visual language and how we're communicating these things and making that, sorry, I'm getting a little design talky here, but making that feel consistent, you know? So it's not a radical shift in how we're delivering the information from one piece to the next, if that makes any sense at all. So I don't know if we can hire them for the kiosk as well, if it's not all their design that's in it, if they're just the people that put it together, like we give them the information that's to be presented. I don't know.
I mean, I personally like that a lot. And also never apologize for being design talky. This is the Public Art Committee.
Thanks for it. I think we all appreciate it.
I guess just really quick before I get to Janelle, I wanted to ask Chelsea sort of a logistical question about the kiosk. I know that it was sort of talked about just getting like a prefab sort of kiosk thing.
My understanding, and you know, even though this is a public meeting, I'm just going to leave with don't quote me on this, because this was thrown at me really early on when I got into this position, all of these elements for the art committee, and the kiosk was not the most urgent thing. So my brain may have jumbled it, but I believe that there is someone in the community, and I won't name names because again, I could be wrong, that has offered to maybe help build this.
Oh, great.
Or
That's true.
someone's, is that right, Ruth? You were part
That's
of that.
right.
Oh, good. So I remember that correctly. So while we would have to check and make sure that is something that that person was still interested or able to do, I think that was the intention. So I think it is going to be kind of a custom built thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't remember who said it, but the idea of if you could get the I don't know his name, the Bear Tracks person, to potentially be involved in any like carving or something. I think just that's sort of his, you know, bread and butter medium. And since we are going to be building something out of wood in the middle of downtown, it seems like a great opportunity to sort of capitalize on that. But we can just maybe, you know, again, I'm leaving a lot of notes for us to come back to later with this kiosk. So yeah, Janelle.
I just wanted to say that, yes, I believe in the streetscape committee that we decided that the prefab situation was absolutely not.
Okay,
Gonna
I just
work for
must have read the
Timbertown.
completely wrong thing.
Just, I think if, and again, Chelsea, I'm with you, that I could be jumbling things, but I believe, I mean, during those meetings that we decided that as Timbertown, that's pretty silly if we
Mm.
order a kiosk from New Hampshire.
Right, that we can't find someone to build this, right?
Yeah, we have lumber, we have people that want to give to the community. It's silly. So, and I love the idea they can work together with Bear Tracks to carve whatever beams and supports. But then I guess, again, building on what Nancy just said, I love all your comments, but weird. But the whole reason for the streetscape committee and the whole reason for this project is so that this is cohesive, right? I mean, that's the whole reason that any of us are here, is so that we don't end up with some weird mod podge of goofy looking stuff that doesn't make sense to people. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but at the same time, like making sure that all of those things piece together in some way. So if Bear Tracks does the bike racks and he does the kiosk, and maybe he does the borders around the kiosk panels, like at the printed, you know, or something, and there's a story about that. But connecting all of those things and connecting the same voice, so that when you walk into the town, you understand what's happening, not that you're trying to go, well, obviously someone else wrote that. You know, I mean, it needs to sound as if Chris Workman wrote the entire thing or whatever, you know, just making, and I'm making things up, but really like that one person created this entire story. And I don't have design talk, but that's, as a person that goes to places, that's what I think.
Yeah, we're the Imagineers of Disneyland, except our Disneyland is downtown Florida.
Well put, Christopher.
Way better than Disneyland ever thought of being.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I do also really agree with, I don't know how much money we have to spend, but with Nancy's idea of maybe Marks Garcia or whoever, of sort of having someone that can maybe help with some of the design of the kiosk as well, just to make sure that it does really fit in line with some of these other aspects. And I guess that is my only potential concern with having the kiosk be carved, is that none of the other like wood, like all the other like street lights and everything will be a certain wood look. So not that we can't sort of balance that with the kiosk, like maybe, you know, the outer things are the same wood look and then we have like inner ones that are more carved or something. But that would just be my only concern, is I do think that cohesion is important. I also think that the variety is important. So I think it's just sort of finding that balance. There's a lot of hands up. Let me see. I'll do Ruth and then Chelsea and then Nancy, unless if someone has something super pressing. But
Let's say one comment and one question. I think because the kiosk is really going to be a focal point. Cohesion is important, but I don't know that it has to be so closely linked to the inlays and other things, because I think it's in and of itself, it's going to have so much to offer dimensionally that, you know, I think it's helpful to have it tied to other pieces, but I'm not too worried about it, I guess, at this point. And my question is, when I think of the plinths, I always think of sculptures sitting on them. Do other things sit on them?
that I've also been wondering that.
I do think, yeah, I think it's traditionally sculptures. I just think that there are a lot of different, you know, types of sculptures. I think that I know just recently we've been talking about the Veterans Memorial Park. And just there are a lot of different ideas, right? Like with that, it's the traditional sculpture that you think of or that you see a lot is the bronze sculpture, and it's very traditional. There are a lot of other options. So yes, I think it's going to be something that's multi-dimensional and that you would see. It's got to be something that's large enough for you to actually see. So yes.
I also just want to be conscious of the time. It is 6:33 and we're scheduled to get over at 6:30. Is it all right if we go till 6:45? Any objections to that? Okay. I'm hoping Janelle doesn't object. Maybe she's already at 6.
Maybe that was her version of objecting.
Okay. And then Chelsea, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say about the kiosk. One potential to think about is just the structure of it and what carving might do. So there might be another way to bring the carved pieces in and affix them to it so that the kiosk itself stays. And then in 15 years, if something rots away, you can have another artist do that and install something again so that it's just a little bit more stable. So that would be the only thing that I would think of with that. But
that's a good idea. Thank you. Nancy?
I'm wondering if Bear Track's work could happen on a plinth. Like if we can commit to, I mean, I just love his sculptural woodwork. It's really like, that's his jam. Like he's doing what he's supposed to be doing with that. And I don't know, in my head, I could see the kiosk looking awesome with him carving it, but I do agree that it might run into some other long-term problems with weathering or structural issues. So maybe, I don't know, I'm just saying maybe we could potentially agree that, we could reach out to him in the future about being on.
I did, yeah, just so you know, I let everyone know that you liked them all, because to one level or another, there was things about all of their work that you liked. So I did let them know that, and let them all know that we would, if there are further opportunities, that we will reach out to them.
Okay.
I did specifically reach out to the two, I think it was Lenore and Bear Tracks, and just let them know that they were very top rated. It was a very tough decision between the three of them, and just to kind of keep an eye out from me for these future opportunities. So I think when you get to the plinths, I would have no doubt that you all would want something from Bear Tracks. We will just we'll make sure to, let's go through the process, submit whatever you need to submit like everyone else. But I do think that you've already reviewed and decided that you want to see that art present downtown. So
I just want to say one more thing about the kiosk and like organizing typography, like type, like bodies of type, so that people actually want to read it, is an art form in and of itself. I'm kind of like a super nerd with typography. Like if it's a big old block of text, I will not read it. Like it's not interesting to me. So I guess I'm just putting the word in that I would really love for a designer to be the person that manages the type. The typeface matters, the size of the type. There's just so much stuff to think about that if it's not, Marks and Garcia, maybe it's Lenore that does it, but I just want to put the word out that that's not an easy thing to do. It takes somebody that's a type nerd. So that's all.
No, I also completely agree with that. And I think that for better or worse, deserved or undeserved, I think these sort of, municipal government projects have a reputation for having not the best design or typeface. So it would be nice if we could sort of break the mold a little bit on that one. So yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not like talking something zany. I'm just like readable, like it's legible, like it's approachable. It's got the spirit that we want. Yeah.
Yes, I hear you. Okay, I guess, are there any other, we don't need to make any decisions on this tonight, right, Chelsea?
No, it was just for a discussion. And then don't forget about the minutes.
Yeah, right. So yeah, is there any other sort of thoughts on the bike racks or any of the other components of the project before we move on? Okay. Or, oh, Peggy?
Yeah, have we really seen what the bike racks are going to look like? I think there's gonna be, what, 4 of them, and aren't they just kind of an arch and there's a little design in the middle? Is that what we're talking about when we say this is what the bike racks that we're gonna have?
Yeah, they're an arch, and then they have to start with, they have a solid panel in the middle. That
Okay.
is where you could do the art. And I did talk to the company that's going to manufacture them, and there is a little bit there's a little opportunity. They said depending on how complicated our design is, it sort of affects whether or not they have to send it out to another company that does more specialized work, or if they can do it in-house. I think, that they could get too busy. That's just my personal thought, is that if you have something that's like we were talking about, a pattern, like something like that's nice, it's consistent, I believe that they would be able to do that type of work in-house. And so, yes.
Yeah, and having used bike racks before, like a lot of people, sometimes they can just get too cumbersome. A bike rack is functional. You want to
Sure.
be able to lock your bike to it.
Mhm.
So if it's got too much ornate stuff going on, and it just gets cumbersome. Where am I going to
Right.
put my lock and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
these are
it
pretty
can be very
simple.
clean lined.
Yeah, they're pretty simple with clean lines, and then anything that's interior is just the loop. So there's no art on the interiors. These are just going to be the ones that show from either the outside. So if they're like 4 racks, the 2 on the end would have the art. The 2 in the middle are just the arch. So I think that will
Jeff,
help.
I was
too.
thinking somehow that we were going to have 4 single bike racks separated in 4 different ways, but we're just going to have 1 4-rack bike rack, 1 in town.
No, there's not. There's more than one.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think-
there's one area that has, I think, 2. There's one that has 4.
Okay.
I don't quote me, but I did just look at the plans and was
Okay.
trying to count out how many of the art paneled racks we would need,
Okay.
and there's definitely more than one
It's
area.
Great,
just
thanks.
each bike rack has 4 separate like parking spots.
Some of them, there is an area that has like 2 next to each
Okay.
other, and then there's a larger area that has 4. But I want to say that they were in at least 3 areas, I think, on the plans.
Okay, thank you.
Janelle?
Are we also doing a bike repair station?
That is not part of the project, but I have mentioned it as something. I think that it would be really great if there were a group that wanted to take that on as something to like raise money for. I think that could get it done faster because it's not part of the project, but just, as an idea out there, if some group wanted to take that on.
Yeah.
I think it's a great area for it.
Well, they're not that expensive.
They're not terrible.
No, the expensive part is mounting them and doing the under the sidewalk stuff, which if we're gonna have everything torn up anyway.
Yeah, some of them are surface mounted. They have different ways to install them. So,
And depending on if
Yeah.
you have a compressor or not.
right. Well, and that could be coordinated, I'm sure, with Public Works. I think it's more about, it's not on a list anywhere to buy it this time, but it has been mentioned. I did pass it on. So I say just keep talking about it and seeing if you can find people interested in supporting that idea. Yeah.
I think it might also be a little outside of the scope of this committee, just since it's not public art
It's not art.
specifically.
Not very artistic, Janelle. Very functional.
I would also love to have it. I just think that's probably not.
I guess
what we're
that's
here
true,
for.
sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Send me an email, Janelle.
All right, you got it.
Okay, well, great. Then we can move on. We'll do the minutes and then we'll next meeting discussion and adjournment. I guess I'll just do a quick note on the minutes. On lines 24 and 25, It says Chair McMorrin asked if anyone felt they had a conflict of interest in discussing the vendors, and none were acknowledged. Nancy did just mention, I don't know if it's like an official conflict of interest, but just mentioned that she knew Marks Garcia.
She was my boss, so
Okay, so
that's
that,
why I didn't really see much during that meeting, because I know a lot of information about her beyond what, you know.
yeah.
What page was that?
On page 1,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
25.
Okay. I will add that.
And then the only other thing, this is not like an ego thing. I'm sometimes referred to as Member McMorrin and sometimes referred to as
Nice.
Chair McMorrin.
It's just me
So
trying to do cram too much into a day, so.
Just, if we can, whatever it
Be
is.
consistent is what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, and I think those are the only 2 notes I had. Janelle?
I just have random things that don't even matter, but on page 2, line 21, at the very end, it says Brad Johnson designed third, and that as should be struck out.
Line 21.
At the very end of the second to
Oh,
last
as.
word. And then same thing on line 24 at the very end, it says opportunity to interview 2 vendors. So the second 2 just needs to go. Not really that important, but
That's good. I didn't catch that.
Clearly, I need to go through my minutes again.
that was
Okay.
hard to read your own writing.
Any other amendments to the minutes? All right. Then Ruth.
Just wanted to move that we accept the minutes, approve the minutes as amended.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. It's moved and seconded. Is there any opposition to approving the minutes as amended? Seeing none, then the minutes are approved. So we can then finish up with next steps and scheduling of next meeting. And Chelsea, you said you might want us to wait on that.
Yes, I think we should email some dates and see what Marks Garcia's intention is for meeting with you all. So
Okay.
I will follow up with, I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow and see if I can get that coordinated, and I'll follow up with email.
Okay. And I guess just in general, does the 5:30 p.m. time slot still work fine for everyone, depending on the day? Okay, cool. Then yeah, Chelsea will just keep an eye out for something from you.
Okay.
Any other thoughts for the good of the order before we head out?
I was just going to say that you're right, that Marks Garcia may, in a week and it could be a short time frame that they come back to us with something. So if we're willing to meet in 2 weeks or whatever, and just to move things along, if they have things back to us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd certainly be. I mean, like I said, we've been doing this since October, so
Let's
I'm
go.
happy to meet
Get it
when-
moving.
now that we're
Right.
finally doing stuff. So yeah. Okay, well, great. Any other thoughts? All right, then it's 6:45 p.m. So I will adjourn the meeting, and we will see you all at some point in the future to be